I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
And I guess, that's one of the things that we do in our business as well, is we make sure we are regularly trying different wines, different regions. We're always doing tastings and we try to vary it as much as possible because then it becomes our knowledge base as well.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale.
Mark Baulderstone is the Managing Director of Riedel Australia and New Zealand. He is also one of the most passionate and professional individuals that I've ever come across in my time. He's fiercely dedicated to his craft and a huge supporter of all people, places and spaces serving great drinks. If you can pour it, you can be sure that Mark has a glass for it. Hi Mark, thanks for joining me.
Good morning. Hi Shanteh. That was a wonderful intro. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We have known each other for some time now, and I thoroughly look forward to any chance I get to have a chat or talk to you about what you've been up to. So thank you for making time for me today.
Likewise. Thanks. No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Shanteh.
Tell me a little bit about where the story of wine or drinks kind of begins for you.
So I was not a great student, and I decided to leave school quite early in my life. And I actually originally wanted to go and become a chef, but my mum said that was a disastrous, terrible idea. Don't do that. Don't become a chef. You're too volatile. I don't want you in a kitchen with knives. Forget it. And ended up in a roundabout way when I was actually 17. I started working at the Lord Nelson Brewery Hotel, and I was obviously being 17. I wasn't allowed in the public bar area, of course, once they were open, but I was allowed downstairs in throwing kegs around and restocking the bars when no one was around out of hours. And Blair Hayden, the proprietor down there, actually got me interested in wine. He was the one that used to, once I turned 18, of course, he used to offer me regularly the opportunity to taste wine. One of the owners of that property is Robert Hillsmith from Yalumba. And so, of course, a lot of the winemakers used to turn up there on a regular basis and open up bottles of wine. And I guess I got allured with what wine was and is. And back then, this is quite a long time ago, they were opening up a lot of very old wines. And I had the pleasure of seeing these wines as they'd been out at tastings during the daytime, and then they'd come back and have beers in the afternoon and literally put the wines out the back for you to try. Excuse me. And I how can you not be enchanted with trying all these really old wines, which most people will never get to see in their life? And that was how I got interested in wine.
The Lord Nelson. I mean, that's such an institution, Australia's oldest continually licensed hotel. And I was wondering if it was Blair because, he's been or has been the proprietor for a long time there and such a passionate man about wine and really changed that space into, what it is today. What were your first kind of impressions about the people involved in wine and the winemakers? Did you think, they're kind of a bit batty, or did you think that they were just very passionate people? What was your first, thoughts about them?
I always thought it was an industry that was full of a lot of very passionate people. There's no doubt about that. And I do remember a lot of people when I started thinking about wanting to go into the industry, because I thought, what a great opportunity, working with winemakers and outselling bottles of wine. And as I said, look, the sort of the trend back then for an old school rep was, I'm sure they'd do their calls in the morning up to lunchtime, and in the afternoon that was it. They were off. And I thought, what a great idea, What I want to do this too. I want to go and drink wine in the afternoon and have fun with all these crazy people. Of course, the industry is very different now, and this is not what you do. But I think it was always enticing from that perspective to thinking about the sort of people that were involved in the industry. And I always remember as well, people always said, look, if you want to go into the wine industry, you're never going to make money out of this. This is you do this for love. You do this for passion. You don't make money out of wine. I mean, I think these days a lot of people have made very good money out of wine, and it is a good industry. But there's no doubt about it. Back then, it was much more a labour of love, and therefore it attracted those sort of people by nature.
Yeah, I love that hospitality can be a gateway for perhaps people that maybe just like you said didn't perhaps go down the traditional route. It surprises me that you didn't love school because I think of you as quite a studious, professional person. But very interesting to know that that's the kind of start you had.
I think I was a square peg in a round hole, and school didn't know how to deal with me, and I didn't know how to deal with school, and ultimately I got spat out the side, and it was and I always wanted to work. I've worked from when I was nine, I guess from when I was 9 years of age onwards. My first job was out picking up golf balls on a driving range with a hat on and a coat. And I used to get paid, I think, $3.50 or $2.50 and a can of drink at the end of it. So I've always wanted to work. Like I've always had that desire, and that's always burned a lot stronger in me than anything else. And that through various different jobs in my early teens, and then once I had that opportunity, and I thought, I want to go out and work. That's it. Get me out of here. School's not for me. So, and of course, you do a lot of your learning later in life anyway. My context. So, yeah.
Yeah, very true. Well, I'm glad that you weren't hit by any of those golf balls and we still have you with us today. Tell me about where did Riedel come into it?
So after I left the Lord Nelson, I had wanted to get into the wine industry, and back then I was Sydney based. There was not a lot of opportunity in the wine industry, interestingly. It was going through quite a stagnant phase. Not a lot of opportunities popping up with distributors to work as a sales rep or in anywhere, really. And an opportunity came about with Riedel based in Melbourne, and I met who was the distributor back then. I think what had happened is a container of product had been imported into the country from Riedel, and it sat in a warehouse and didn't move. And there was a semi-distribution structure that had been put into place, but nothing was really organised. And Wolfgang Engel, who is still in the company, he was sent here by George Riedel to go and find out what's happening with the container, and go and have a look at it, and find out what's going on. And he said to the distributor, "Well, you either employ someone to make it work, or we'll take the distribution off you, and we'll make our own plans here." And I just happened to fall into the job at that time. It wasn't something that was intended, and so I started working for the distributor in Victoria, and it was interesting. I always remember going out and having a look and in the marketplace and trying to find this product before it even started, and I just couldn't find it anywhere. I'm like, right, okay. So we really started with a blank canvas, and this is back in '95, where right at the time we only had essentially what we classify now as all of our retail lines, which we were selling to restaurants. So there was a small number of accounts which had I guess supported the product and the brand, but based on the price points and what they were purchasing, it was a big stretch to get them to come across. And so, yeah, I sort of fell into the role back then. As I say, that was back in 1995, and then have continued, sort of evolving since then. But yeah, it's been a long period of time that I guess we've seen change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the industry, the glass industry, for that matter, dates back, to the 1400s or before that. But tell me, what was your first impressions of Riedel when you kind of first went into it? What was the thing that struck you? You thought, this is a company that I'm interested in working for?
For me, it was about the product itself was something that you can't, even today, when we think about how the brand, like what the product does and what it stands for in relation to how it benefits a consumer, it was a product which was market leading and it was paving its own road. And, glassware at the time was very different. Glassware there was the little XL5 that was everywhere, and most sort of wine bars were using that as a drinking glass, or alternatively they were using some form. Better restaurants were using some form of decorated glass. And when you saw then the product and how it worked, it was very easy to fall in love with it. It was a product that it just performs every time, and it always enhanced the wine, the beverage, the moment, the experience, every little part of it. And, back then we were only dealing with 3 lines. We had a handmade line, which was sommeliers, which we still have. We have Vinum, and we have Overture. These were, and Overture was what George Riedel produced just to sell to restaurants because they wanted the Riedel brand, but they didn't want to spend the money on Vinum. And and as I said, these were all retail products. But so we were, a lot of our tastings and a lot of our workshops or experiments and training sessions that we did with clients were with our sommeliers series, our handmade line that come out of our main factory in Kufstein. It's, when you use a handmade glass, there's just something unique and special about it. It's a very, very beautiful piece. It's been, produced by an artisan. Every piece is unique and is different, and that's the joy and the beauty of what a handmade product is. Hard not to fall in love with it, I guess. That was where I got to with it. And again, every time you use it, it just reinforced with me how amazing the product is and how amazing it is for the consumer that they always get an amazing glass of wine when they drink from a Riedel glass. And that for me was what really struck me. And it was the one thing that, you constantly were able to show people how to enjoy something to a higher level. And it was a very unique thing. There was not many other products in our industry, wine-related, other than different wine brands that sparked this interest and this joy in a consumer. And I guess that was really what ultimately took me.
I think it's interesting because Riedel does everything to the utmost level of perfection, whether it's marketing, packaging, delivery, everything is thought considered and wonderfully executed. But I think what's amazing is the product. Like you said, the product itself. If I speak to Nelly, any sommelier or wine lover or bartender, they always have a moment where they've come across Riedel glassware and they've had the experience of tasting it and gone, holy crap, I cannot believe the change in that tequila or that glass of wine just by doing the process and the experience of having that, that smell and that sniff and enjoying the product. And what I think is amazing is that it's really great to see somebody have that light bulb moment and go, holy crap, that's amazing. And it's not through necessarily that you guys telling us about it. It's their own personal experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, spot on. Look, and this is a large part of what we do is talking to consumers, and that light bulb moment that you just remember, you recalled is something that we see in consumers even today. Look, there's no doubt consumers, whether they've heard about Riedel, a lot of our customers have our brand, wonderful supporters, but they've never ever sat with us at a tasting and seen the difference that a glass can make. And that side of the experience, when they actually do, I had a customer just recently who he's made a function centre in his house. He owns quite a large firm, and he's bought a lot of glasses off us. So I think a couple of thousand pieces for his function centre. And I asked him to come along to a tasting just recently. So he'd already committed to the brand. He was a very valued customer, very loyal. He came to a tasting and said, I had no idea that it had made that much difference. And it's one of those things, unless you go through that experience, unless you do a comparison, then it's just a vessel which holds a liquid, and there's lots of those out there in the market, plenty of them. The market's full of them. Once you then make the glass work, that's what matters. And I guess, that's largely what we do, and we try to do is really educate people from that perspective.
Yeah. And that tasting that you talked about, I was lucky enough to be invited to one by you where George was there at the time. And I will never forget the entire process. It was like everyone was hanging on every word that he spoke. There was death silence when he spoke. But I remember it was these incredible moments where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that. It's almost like there's some kind of magic happening in the room. And then, the glassware was packaged up to take home. I was like a kid in a candy store. I was just absolutely just thrilled. And I even said to my parents, I was like, you need to go and do one of these experiences, because I said everyone gets so much out of them.
Look, absolutely. And George, in this sense, George is retired these days, but thankfully, he still does tastings from time to time. And George is the master of it. His tastings have become very complex and very late because he's learnt it over a long period of time. I think even in the end, some of his tastings were blowing out to well over 2 hours. But they're full of content and full of information, all of which is interesting. I think to the average consumer, maybe probably could be an oversaturation, but there's to the trade amazing information and content that comes out of a tasting with George. So yeah, fun experience.
Yeah. He certainly knows how to capture a room. And in saying that, so does Maximilian. So Riedel is a family-owned company with over 300-year history. Tell me, what's it like working for a family that's kind of in their 10th and 11th generation?
The company is, look, I think working in any family business, you always have to work with a sense of passion and a sense of dedication because, especially in this case, there's, as Maximilian always says, there's 11 generations, 266 years behind him. You don't want to be the last one, and that message and that passion is literally pushed right through the business and through the company, in which case, we're very, it's a fun brand and it's a fun product, but we're very serious about what we do, and we want to always execute it at in the best possible way. Look, I guess the other thing with working for a company or a family business like this is it's a very flat structure. So we talk directly with owners. If you want decisions, you talk with an owner. Things get done at a very rapid and fast pace, and we're all and everybody at the sort of the director level, including and the family, we're all across all the topics that are relevant to us on a day-to-day basis. So things move very quickly and very fluid, and regardless of where we're all based around the world, we're all communicating on a very regular basis. So. And I think rather than having a corporate structure, which it's just not us, that's not what we do. We're not a small business, we're not a giant, but at the same time, everything is done, one-to-one. A lot of involvement from owners.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. I spoke to a young sommelier not long ago and was talking about the skills that they have and the breadth of where they can utilize wine skills. And I talked a little bit about, the different avenues you can go down. Tell me a little bit about, what kind of wine and spirit knowledge do you need to have to kind of work in your field? And are you heavily involved in wine and spirits?
Absolutely. Look, initially when I look for people to join our business, I don't necessarily look for someone who is a wine professional or wine or spirit professional. I tend to look for people who have knowledge of wine and, sort of a basic working knowledge to some degree, whether they've worked in the industry, whether it's selling or whether they've worked in a winery. For me, it's more about the passion because all the other stuff, I can't teach passion and desire, but we can teach you about wine. You've got to have, as time goes on, you've got to build a fairly good working knowledge of all wine. We don't align ourselves with any one sort of winery or brand. The product can be utilised across the entire industry, but you've got to have, from a communication standpoint, when you're standing in front of a consumer, you need to have a good basis of knowledge of working knowledge of wine. And look, mine has been developed over the course of, I guess, 26 years. Going to a lot of tastings, going to a lot of different events, talking to winemakers on a regular basis over a very long period of time, and you learn a lot. I think initially, my wine knowledge was non-existent, and I think when I was also talking to a lot of people doing tastings, doing Riedel tastings, not only was my knowledge nowhere near what theirs probably was on wine, I was the youngest person in the room by at least 25 years. I think the consumer age bracket's changed over the years, as has knowledge. Knowledge has increased. Consumers have gotten younger. I've gotten older, of course, but consumers have definitely gotten younger. But the general sort of knowledge of wine in this country has increased significantly. I mean, you would have seen this as too over your time when you think of the average sort of experience of consumers. So you've got to have a very solid knowledge of wine, but that can, we generally develop that over time in this business.
Like I suppose a lot of things, it's about attitude and passion first, and everything else can be taught along the way. But the reason I ask that is because I know that your knowledge of wine is right up there. And I think in terms of the fact that you're working with varietal specific stemware, you need to have a really good grasp of what some of the classic varieties look and taste like, who are the producers that make those, really what's the right word, that you can rely on, those reliable classic varieties that they produce year after year. So in terms of your knowledge of what's out there, I think that you have to stay really up to date and your finger's right on the trigger.
Absolutely. Look, and wine, as I sort of say to anyone who joins us as well, wine is you can't shortcut the process. Wine is one of those products, there's a lot of it out there. And the only way you can really learn about it properly is stick your nose in that glass and put it in your mouth and try it. You don't need to drink it all, so you can by all means spit. There's too much wine in the world to drink it all, but the reality is you've got to try it. You've got to be doing this consistently. There's just wine is. I always love when we talk, when we do interviews or I even talk on podcasts and things, and someone says, "Oh, can you explain a glass to me?" And it's like, well, I can, but it's really difficult over in this medium. It's the same with a wine. If I said to you, if you said to me, "Oh, explain this wine to someone," what does it mean to them? The reality is you've got to try it. You've got to get up close and personal with it. You've got to pull the corks, screw off the top, stick your nose in that glass, and you've got to be doing this on a regular basis to keep your knowledge up there. And I guess, that's one of the things that we do in our business as well, is we make sure we are regularly trying, different wines, different regions. We're always doing tastings, and we try to vary it as much as possible, because then it becomes our knowledge base as well. And that's the critical part.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Change of pace. Question for you. You go to your local BYO pizza place and they have those, which you've just told me, XLR?
XL5.
XL5. Yeah, I was thinking the RSL glass. That's all I could think of. But now I know a name. I'm so glad about that. That's what they've got to serve, and you've taken a nice bottle of wine. Do you take your own glasses?
Yes. Look, my wife and I are... I'm sure we annoy some people, but we're famous for walking around with our own glassware if we know that it's not available. If we're going away for a weekend, we always pack a little case and we make sure that we have our own glasses ready to go. Whether it's a generic glass in an Overture series or whether we have something more specific, just depends where we're going and what we're doing. But absolutely, we regularly take glasses out to places when the local joint where. In the end, some of these places I end up actually leaving a box from time to time because it's just easier, and you can they're always there for you. Makes sense.
I love that you've said that, Mark, because the one thing that I really kind of hang my head in shame a little bit is that I do the same thing, and my husband has at times gone home. We've gone to the local pizza place, and on his way I've said, "Can you bring the glassware?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed, but okay." But the problem is, you might as well not drink something delicious if it's going to be out of those crappy glasses. I'll just drink beer if that's the case. So I've done the same thing, and I kind of feel like a little bit of a wine wanker, but I just can't help myself.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, look, over the years we've had lots of side eyes getting looked our way, but you're right, and this is the thing, and this is you sort of comes back to what I said at the earlier on is, and this is what enchants you about the product is, we all make an investment in wine, and if you think about what you spend on it these days per bottle, it's not cheap, and depending on what you're drinking and where you're getting it from, it can add up. In which case, why would you not maximise it? Whether you're having a pizza or you're going to the local Thai place, whatever it may be, just throw a couple of glasses in. It makes perfect sense.
It's so true. And my local little Thai place, they keep my glasses so that I don't have to look silly walking in.
Yeah, even better. And the best for a venue is when you bring in your own glasses and you take them away. That's the best opportunity for them. They don't have to break theirs, and you don't drink their detergent, so everybody wins.
Oh, I love it. It's so good. You made me feel at home, so thank you for that. Tell me, can you explain a little bit, just in maybe a bit more of a general sense, the difference between kind of crystal and glass? Because it's a question that I would get asked a lot in the restaurant. Like, is this glass crystal? Is it glass? So could you give them a little bit of a roundabout idea?
Yeah, so look, I think this is one of these, this is definitely a topic which can be very confusing. Old school and historically, crystal was classified in three different variants. You had full lead crystal, which was 30% lead oxide and above. Very few products were produced in this type of execution. And literally, it's just the addition of lead oxide into the raw composition, which creates this very soft and malleable product. The only reason you would ever do that is when you want to use that type of product in a very decorative glass. So you're going to cut it, for example. So if you think back, you know how glass window panes in old school windows, they would slump over the years. And the reason they would slump is because they have lead oxide in them. And so the addition of lead means that they're very soft and malleable and pliable. It also makes them very heavy. And so it depends on the style of production. We always used to, historically, up until 2013, 2014, we used lead crystal in most of our lines. Lead crystal was 24% weight by volume, and that gave us a brilliant, clear product. It had beautiful weight to it and presence in the hand, and beautiful elegance. But look, having lead oxide in the factory and just on that topic, the issue for us moving forward was that we always had to have a doctor on site when you have lead oxide as a raw material, and we always did batch mixing in-house. So for that purpose, we always had to have a doctor 24/7 on site. They didn't do anything, but they had to be there. Just that was one of the legal requirements. So we made a decision to eliminate it out of the product. We use a product called crystalline. It's a composition where we remove lead oxide, but we're adding in other components, other materials, so that you get this beautiful whiteness and this clear quality in the glass. So I think crystal in a modern context is, you can move to soda lime glass, which is typically used for the type of glass that you would find in your cupboards right now for jars. It can be quite brittle, but the reality is you'd always find it thicker, which makes it stronger and more durable. It's also a cheaper form of production. That's why it's used in that capacity. For us, crystal glass and it's crystalline. Some people would say it's a marketing reference and term. There's no doubt about that, but the reality is we don't produce soda lime. So if you don't produce soda lime and you step up, it's crystalline is our product. We actually batch mix in-house still, and we're fully responsible for our own quality. This is something that is unique to us. We pride ourselves in our quality. All of our glasses have this beautiful whiteness to them, and 95% of other products in the marketplace that sit out there, they've all got these different colour refractions to them, and the reason is because they're using cheaper products. Now, we could do the same thing, but it means that you're going to get all these different colour variants in your glass, and because of what we do, being the wine glass company, we don't want this. So it's something we're very proud of, the composition that we've managed to work with. But look, I think there's only one factory that I'm aware of that is still producing lead oxide in glass, and it's only because they're doing a lot of cutting of product. Outside of that, there's no need for it in a modern context. So it's still, I know it's still probably a very vague description, but it's as concise as I can get.
Oh, no. I think you've done a great job, because it is so detailed, and I'm fascinated by glassware because I think it really reflects the world and what's happening in it. And if you look at how far glassware has come over the years, it's absolutely fascinating. So I could get really nerdy and I could pick your brains for much longer than this. But no, you've really answered the question. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I mean, it is, as I say, I know, we understand. It's one of these very vague things that some people have a little bit of an understanding of, but there was not a lot of information. There was not a lot of information that graded what was put out into the marketplace in the past.
Yeah. And I mean, these days, everything's been answered in everything that people want of a glassware. It used to be, we've got beautiful fine crystal, but you can't get it out very often because someone's going to break it and it costs a lot of money and it's too delicate. Now we have lightweight, durable glassware that you can use for any occasion so everything's kind of been answered. I mean, a lot of the Riedel range, the few of them, you can put them in the dishwasher.
Absolutely. All of it can go in a dishwasher. I always say to all of my tastings that our glasses are dishwasher safe. They're not human safe. We love to test the pressure points. We do all sorts of crazy things like twisting them at either end. But the reality is you put in a machine and it's stable, it won't break. The machine cannot break your glass. We break our glass through negligence. No one wants to hear this. Nobody wants to hear this, but it's just the reality. It's just the way it is.
It's often that the shoving it into the dishwasher that's the problem, or pulling it out too roughly. Once it's in there, it's okay. Yeah, very true. I want to ask you, you've worked with some amazing collaborators over the time. Coke, numerous, Central Otago, Pinot Noir. Walk me through the process of, say, working with a collaborator. Say something like Four Pillars Gin.
Okay. That's one we're doing at the moment. We try to work with, as best as possible, with a lot of our partners, people who work and support with us as well, support our business. Four Pillars, this is a pure marketing drive and concept, and we just put together a little pack that was going out into for gin. But if I was to give you, you mentioned Central Otago, that was quite a long process. And I'd elaborate on that one for you. Rudy approached me, gosh, it must have been back in 2013, and said, I'm interested, are you guys interested to make a glass for Central Otago? I said it was not long shortly off the back of a glass that George Riedel had done for Oregon Pinot Noir. And I said, well, yeah, it's possible. Like, why don't I come and meet with you and we can have a chat about it? And so we did exactly that. We had a meeting, and I said, yeah, sure. Look, why don't I invite George to come, and we'll travel to Central Otago and we'll construct a workshop for you, and we'll let's see if we can find the best glass for Central Otago. And look, we did one workshop must have been 2014, 2013, late 13, early 14. In Central Otago with George Riedel and all of the winemakers, and we asked them all to bring their wines. We took around about 18 different glasses, and it was interesting because there was a group of marketers in the room and there was the group of winemakers in the room, and the marketers chose one glass and the winemakers chose another one. And easiest way to sort of explain that when you in the workshop process is it's a process of elimination, and when you get down to the end, the idea is to look for the glass which presents the wine at its most perfect, the glass which really highlights the attributes of the style of the wine. And so the answer in that to, of course, the marketers was, well, this is the way the consumers would want to see it. But the answer to the winemakers was, yeah, but this is the way we want to see it. And it's like, right. So then you've got these two having a battle. So what we had to do was actually merge the two glasses. We had to mutate the two. And that's how we developed that glass. Now and then we did prototypes. We did, I think from recollection, we did around about 250, we polled around 250 people in the end to get that glass and to get it right. It took us about 2 years from memory, and probably about €250,000 in development costs. Completely absurd for the size of the region, but that's how passionate we are about this. And it became, George Riedel loves Pinot Noir, and so it became a labour of love for him to make sure that we got it right. And in the end, we developed this glass, which we believe through tastings was categorically the best glass for Pinot Noir. It's a very complicated process. It's very time consuming, but it's the DNA of what we do. This is the unique part. So yeah.
And that's what I mean about Riedel in terms of the way that they do everything with such finite detail. And I think that's exactly right. Central Otago, and especially, when that was in creation, was taking the world by storm with their style of Pinot Noir and what they were achieving, with Rudy Bauer at Quartz Reef and a lot of the guys in Central Otago, and it deserved its own glass. And I just think it was so exciting because it generated that excitement around the region, but also about, why it was special as opposed to other places in the world. And I think it's really cool. And you get to do so many fun things like that, whether it, like you said, it be a gin or Coca-Cola, or the first time I came across the glassware was tequila, and I wasn't a huge tequila fan. And then I got to have tequila in a glass that actually showed this array of beautiful aromatics rather than just this hot spirituous alcohol, which is what I kind of knew. So, yeah, just remarkable.
I mean, look, the Coca-Cola one was a left of centre, and that was a George Riedel special because George Riedel he had a fascination with Coca-Cola as a kid, and he had the opportunity to develop the glass for them. Personally, I was never a Coca-Cola. I mean, as a kid, I drank litres of the stuff, I'm sure. But as an adult, I don't drink Coke. It's not one of my beverages. But for the first time ever, you smell Coke in a glass and you go, wow, that's what it smells like. Fascinating. I never knew all those years. All those years I just drank it straight from the bottle, straight into the belly. But it actually has quite an interesting aroma to it when you analyse it. Not that I drink Coca-Cola now, but anyway.
But no, I know what you mean, and there's lots of layers to that recipe, that coveted recipe that we're never ever going to find out.
No, absolutely.
Tell me, Mark, if you kind of sit back after a long day, I know you work incredibly hard. What makes you proud of the work that you do?
What makes me proud is what we've achieved here in the market. When I consider how we're positioned, how we go to market, our presence, our market coverage, what we've managed to achieve with our brands. And we've got 3 brands under our umbrella. It's not just Riedel. We've also got Spiegelau and Nachman. And Nachman has been a huge success story for us here in Australia. And I look, through the COVID period, we were very, very lucky and very blessed that, consumers being home, people stocked up on glassware. The trend for consumption was all about enjoying what you would normally enjoy in a restaurant at home. So we were very lucky over that period, and business was very good for us. I guess we were one of the lucky ones through that period in that sense. And when we looked at consumption per capita, Riedel was number 1 in the world, and that's something that I'm very proud of when I consider the size of our market. And look, obviously, we're never going to be a giant like the US or Germany, but when we consider how much we do sell here per capita, we were number 1. And that's something I'm very proud of. We've got a team of people here that have been with me for a very long time, core nucleus of team that have worked very hard to achieve that. And I'm not one for standing back and patting myself on the back or the team very often, but that is something that I have to say was an achievement that I had never thought about. But when we got there, it's like, right, well, that's it's quite an impressive result. How do we better it? That's the problem. It's easy. It's when you're that high, it's only down sometimes. So you've got to make sure you keep striving and keep pushing, and keep making sure that we do things, we execute everything to the best in the best possible way we can. And I guess that's what keeps me going. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have been with the brand for how many years now?
27.
Wow.
I just,
So that really says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, just tells you how old I am, that's all.
No, it doesn't. No, it really says a lot about working for a great company and working with a great team. And I think that's just testament to that. That's wonderful to hear. I've only got a couple more questions. I've actually got a lot more, but I'll wrap it up. Tell me, first of all, how much glassware do you have in your home, and do you need a whole room to store it all?
No. Look, right now, actually, I don't have a lot of glassware because we're about to start a renovation. But the reality is, look, we have a couple of lines and in the new place, we're building a purpose-built glass cabinet. Look, we need enough just for the main varietals, the key varietals which we enjoy or which we would share with friends and family whenever they come over. So realistically, we're talking probably about 4 different varietals. and then water glasses and things on top. Look, it does take up a considerable amount of space because you need 6 to 8 glasses of each variant. But normally one cabinet up until just now, when, as I say, we were about to renovate, we had this lovely IKEA cabinet for glassware, and it was perfect. It just double-doored IKEA cabinet did all of our needs for glassware. Wonderful temporary measure until we get the permanent space, but that was a very easy way of holding it all.
I'm excited to see this renovation and see what you come up with, because I've been put a ban on glassware in my household, and so I keep it in boxes and squirrel it away where he doesn't know where they live. So he doesn't quite know just how much I have, and I like it that way, but I can't help myself.
I do get told off for having too much, but that's, and I do get regularly sent back to the office with different lines. So, yes.
Oh, touche. I love it. Now, let me see. If you only had 3 beverages that you could drink for the rest of your life, Mark, what would they be and why?
You know what? This is a very easy answer for me, because there's only 3 beverages I generally drink in my life. I start the morning with water, I then go to coffee, and I finish with wine. I don't drink juices. I don't drink anything other than those 3 products. They're my staples. Coffee gets me going in the morning, and wine brightens up the day at the end of it. So and I drink a lot of water. So there you go. Very simple, very easy for me.
That's very important, and 3 things you really do need. We can't get anywhere with coffee. And I was thinking, I know he's going to say wine, but I was thinking, will he say champagne? Will he say Chardonnay? Will he say Pinot, or maybe Barolo?
Well, no, Barolo. My wife does not like Barolo, so doesn't feature in our house very often, because if I open the bottle, I have to drink it on my own, which is not a great idea. So no, but Pinot Noir is definitely a staple in our house, as is Champagne and Chardonnay. They're our three main grapes that we gravitate towards. But wine, generally speaking, I would say is my thing, and coffee, as you say, I can't deal without coffee.
No, I feel you for that. Well, very good choices, and I align with a lot of those. It's been so nice to spend some time with you today, Mark. It's always a pleasure, and thank you so much for having a chat with me, and I hope that we get in the same room sometime soon and we can have a drink.
I hope so too. That sounds like a wonderful idea. Thanks for having me, Shanteh. Greatly appreciate it.
Cheers to you, Mark.
Thanks, Shanteh.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram @overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.